Good morning, everybody. This is a Monday morning, June 16th, 2025, but the video that I'll be sharing with you was done at Joshua's house, his main room that most people might call it a living room or a formal living room, but he's turned it into his library for all his working that he does on his books. That was done Saturday. That would be was that 14th? I think it was June 14th. Let me just double check and confirm that, because you know me and numbers. Yeah, that was June 14th, a Saturday. Flag Day, I think it is what it was also called. And this is the day that Trump did the 250th anniversary of the United States Army. That was quite an interesting parade with a lot of history and a lot of high security, I will tell you that. Even though we had a lot of soldiers there, there was massive security around everybody that was on the podium or the dais there. So we're going to play this video of Joshua in the interview, and he's got a lot to say about his military history and how he sees that not a lot has changed. In fact, it's just it's continued on from what he knew. He's an air guy, which meant he was in the sky, and he's going to make that connection. So let me go ahead and add it to the stage. Hey, Joshua, how are you this morning? There we go.
Well, feel great.
Well, good. I'm glad. You look good.
Well, thank you.
Do you like warm weather?
Say, warm
weather. Do you like
I can handle warm weather quite well as you get older, you know.
Well, I guess you do as you get older.
You can handle more heat.
I had not thought of that. That's right. And you are 94 years old still. So
just made it on
there
Easter.
You go. There you go. So I'm Angela, middle initial K, last name Durden, which everybody knows on the Constrained View. But this is for your podcast that is about your life and things that are important to you and how others may benefit from knowing it and that sort of thing. And this is Joshua H. Batchelder. His website is joshbatchelder.com, of which all of that will be linked in the show notes, so everybody will have it, okay?
Thank you, Angela.
And the other two episodes will be also linked on his website if you go to it, so that'll be good to find. So let's talk about, I think you had made some notes of 4 or 5 things you specifically wanted to talk about today. Can you bump through them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and tell us what those are?
I think we can do it with a short hesitation from time to time.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have been thinking a whole lot recently about my hopes for my family and the country and the world. And I believe we're at this intersection right now that things in the past 4 years were headed down, and we had 2 paths, and where we were headed was toward clear destruction. And my thoughts don't just come from having gone through 3 wars, starting in World War II when I was 10 years old, and we looked to the skies for German bombers that could hit us. And I think about today, when I've said that, when Israel is being subjected, we looked to the skies way back then for bombers. So the skies were ruling back then. We were worried about German bombers, and we had people all over the country on the shorelines looking for bombers that might come over and hit us and strike us. And it went on from there to the Korean War period and such, when we thought about nuclear bombers, and I became a radar observer in the back of jets trying to defend Canada and the U.S. from Russian nuclear bombers coming over the short route of the Arctic. So I got that experience then, and what was making a difference in the sky, because I joined the Air Force back then in that within months after the beginning in 1950 in June of the Korean War, joined the Air Force and got that experience of, the experience was that we had to defend the country. And I did it in Labrador. in Labrador, Canada, in the Arctic, subarctic, and Arctic Circle.
Was that Goose Bay?
Goose Bay, Labrador, on the west coast of Lake Melville. It's like snow like in Buffalo, and just as cold, or colder.
Right, yeah. You know, people think about the North Pole, and, you know, people like me who we're not, when we think of going around the world, we think of going around the world on, is this the latitude? Would be around?
It's right up there near the Arctic Circle.
No. Going around the world on the equator, is that the latitude or is that the longitude?
Well, you're going around
No,
latitude.
That's the latitude.
Right.
But in fact, the longitude is where you can go from south to north and over the top of the pole and head back south again. Isn't that longitude?
No, that's the latitude, and then around is the longitude.
That's what I asked.
Yes, well.
Well, I'm used to thinking in a longitudinal fashion then.
All right.
That when I think of going to Russia, I don't ever think about popping over the top of the North Pole.
That's the short route.
That's the short route. And I don't think of that, and a lot of people don't. So that you were how far away from the North Pole were you?
Well, hundreds of miles. But,
yes, but that's
still,
not
it's a
far.
big country up there and a lot of ice.
Yes, so, and whereas I'm thousands of miles from the North Pole right now, where we sit. But, so that wasn't too far. And for a fighter jet to pop over the top for 100, 200, 300, 400 miles, that's not long to come make an attack.
It makes me think, Angela, about a central point that exists today. And my history, which I think I can summarize quickly in the wars, the 3 different wars that I have been connected with while I flew for the Air Force in different positions, it makes me think about back then. What was the difference back then? What is different now? It began with the key issue that certain people that were ahead of their time began to think about controlling the skies. From the skies, we were controlling Russian bombers, trying to control Russian bombers coming over the Arctic. And then it went on beyond there, and then it became faster airplanes, it became jets, it became drones, it became all of these things, and then it will become space. So the evolution of the whole thing, we started with machine gun fires out of crude airplanes with radar in the front and afterburners to get us there when they first started using jets in the Korean War, which they had reciprocating engines for most of the World War II. But basically, it became who can control the skies. And now you got the drones that are hitting Israel and Iran, and long-range missiles, ballistical, and we now know that the war is changing dramatically because of that, and also because we're now on the frontiers of controlling space to control the war. We're back to the skies and space, and it has evolved from machine guns to rockets to small nuclear weapons in jets to control from back in the mountains and elsewhere by the young people that will not be piloting at all, but they will be sending airplanes that are pilotless or missiles to do the dirty work. Bombing.
Right.
Bombing. And the controls and the type of sophistication and the bombers that have been built. And we've gone beyond now the bombers that were built that would reflect radar so you couldn't see them. So they would block the ability, the stealth. The stealth bombers got more stealthy. So then the speed became important of missiles, the speed of rockets. And we went, as I said earlier, from machine guns in the nose of an airplane, and we went to rockets like one airplane that I flew in out of Labrador and then Washington State. And when I came back to college, in Boston's airport there, and one in Manchester, New Hampshire. So we had Logan in Boston and Grenier Air Force Base in New Hampshire. And so we went from all of that to, I had rockets, 52 in each of the wingtips, rockets, 104 rockets. And then it went from what I was flying in to get a single small nuclear weapon that they would fly up, and if it was higher than above them that they were intercepting, they'd stick the nose up and they'd fire that nuclear weapon, and they changed a whole group of airplanes that were bombers coming over. That changed it because that could get rid of a whole lot of bombers at one time with a nuclear weapon. It went from stopping one Russian nuclear to many, so they had to disperse again. And the same thing in the Gulf War. Look what happened then. General Schwarzkopf, my experience as I learned in the period I was flying too, in that period, and then my son-in-law, the same thing, who was an engineer, Schwarzkopf wouldn't go in and have that short war until everything operated from the air control. So the engineers had to do it because they only had 3 of the Joint Stars program available, but they used it to win a war quickly. So we've gone on from there now.
Mm-hmm.
So I see those things. I see that the change is taking place.
And yet the goal is still the same, control from above.
Exactly.
Wow. I'm going to pause it here just for a second. You know, Joshua is 94 years old. Excuse me. And he lived through all this. He was in all of this. He flew in Korea, like you said, in the Korean War, over out of Labrador. You know, we think of the Korean War as being over there somewhere. And of course, we all know about the television show MASH. Now, here's MASH. And as far as the TV show is concerned and the movie, which I've got a funny story about the movie, but I won't tell it right now. It was far removed from us as far as we knew in our daily lives, although I wasn't even born quite yet. Well, in fact, I wasn't born at all until after the Korean War was over. And yet, part of that war, if you will, what involved communism, still actively trying to hurt the United States. So we've got at the top up here, the Soviet Union popping over the top to try to do us. We got Josh coming against them saying, yeah, no. And at the same time, our focus is somewhere else. And most of us probably never even knew about that sort of thing that was going on in the 50s. So there he was in the 50s during the Korean War out of Labrador. Then he was flying during the Vietnam War and then the Cold War around the world doing all sorts of things. And yet, how many of us know somebody who's done all of this? Not many of us, I will tell you that. So let's get back to Joshua now. All I'm saying is that he may be saying things that were like, what? We haven't heard of that before. Well, then you need to listen because he was there.
So it's gone now to space control from the ground, and those techniques, and what Israel has done so thoughtfully when they are afraid of being destroyed for their life, when the enemy is coming at you, it's you shoot or you die. It's who's first, who is controlling the air. And they've softened up Iran so they won't be the same threat, because within days or weeks, we now know anybody who gets all of the news knows that is imminent, and we cannot have a world of nuclear war that any of us would want to live in if we survived.
I'm going to make one other point real quick here, just because he said something very important. He used the words, those who are aware of watching all of the news. That was his way of saying look, there's people out there who don't want us to know everything. They are actively pushing for us not to know, and that there's propaganda like crazy out there, and there are a lot of uh, um, false flag stories, all meant to keep our eye off of what's really going on. So just wanted to let you see that.
So
Yeah.
it is survival. When years back, when we were afraid of the Russian bombers, when I was living in the same area in Atlanta, we already figured if it hit, because it would destroy and would kill an area with the remains of the nuclear weapons, all of that energy that would kill people, slowly they would die. So we had to figure that either a bomb shelter would go in the basement. We decided not to build a bomb, but that anything that hit like a nuclear weapon, we had a plan in the family, and other families, same thing. Follow the tracks toward Gainesville, get out of town. You need 50 to 100 miles away from there. And now that was just the smaller nuclear weapons then, and now they're even bigger. So they can destroy hundreds of miles, not just 25 or 50.
So, what's the next thing on your list that you were wanting to talk about?
I'd like to talk some more about my readings, my spiritual readings.
Okay.
And many people disagree. They disagree on the future. They are depressed in the social media, particularly depressed young people. I worry about them. But from my beliefs, and it is belief, and my spiritual growth, my odyssey, that began back when I was doing yoga, started to do yoga
in your 40s,
and relaxed as I was approaching 40. Overweight, falling asleep from working two things, flying with the National Guard, the Air Force, and conducting successful real estate and insurance sales and all that. So it started back then, and in my studies and readings, I believe that we had a golden age future, which you hear about today from Trump. Seriously, we know, most people who read and get all the news know that we are at a turning point. Are we going to go down in history and not exist as a world? Or are we likely to have a golden age if we can crush or have peace, crush the enemy, the evil ones that want to destroy us? So we are promised, and we have to make choices, and we will see what happens. But be ready for either. And if you're ready and the world goes to hell, if you will, then we have another, God knows what. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I vote and believe the choices that are made now, thank God, we have somebody who's actually running the government. Thank God that decisions are made. Thank God that meetings are conducted openly on serious issues from countering points that are being listened to for those who follow the meetings that didn't used to take place in the White House.
Or if they were taking place, we didn't know who was in them, what was being said. We didn't hear anything as a whole body. Like, for instance, the cabinet with Trump. He does the cabinet meetings with the press in there. And
so nobody can argue about what was said behind closed doors.
Yeah.
It's there.
And they have...
You may not want to hear it all, but it is there for you to make your decisions.
And they have opportunity, the press does, to ask questions in real time.
Yes, and if they are being fair and logical, it's pretty obvious by the loaded questions that the little bombs they think are being thrust at the president or any of his shall we say, very accomplished members of the cabinet.
Yeah.
I have never witnessed in my lifetime so many people who came to the White House as secretaries who had so much business, because historically, from my readings, that most presidents have not, most I say, not all, Eisenhower was an exception, some others, most presidents had under 10% people running the government who ever had to run a business.
Yeah, you remember the fella, I'm trying to think, there was Hewlett and Packard that started HP, the company
Yeah,
HP.
the guy from Texas.
I guess that's where he's from.
Texas. And he had a big empire, nowhere near the size of Elon Musk, but
he was asked to work in one of the administrations. I don't remember which one.
I have to stop and think and take a couple minutes to remember. It was a long time ago.
I read the history of, I think it was Bill and Tom or something like that.
And he was big in the he was big and up to date in the computers and the force of computers.
But
he was a big computer, largest business of his time.
Yes, and he gave up that day-to-day stuff with that. And in fact,
how similar to Musk today this guy was.
That's what I'm trying to say, is that it's not a new thing that somebody from a large business in the business world who's very successful has said, has been asked by a president to come in and help with something because they need that expertise.
A big, strong, experienced man.
Yes.
With a big mind.
And so everybody's like, ooh, but that just shows you that if people are against what Musk is doing now, and by people, I mean the Democrats.
They don't know history.
And the rhinos. Then not only do they not know history, they don't want to know it because
I think you're very right on that, Angela.
Yeah.
There's no question in my mind. They are hiding from the brutal truth, and it is brutal, and that is war. And throughout history and the Bible and the rest, and there is a plan there to me. And the plan gives us some choices, but a whole lot of choices have to be made to survive.
Well, the thing is that
good choices.
God is in control.
That's what I have come to believe.
And when God lets things go as humans want them to go and as Satan is finagling with it until it's time for God to accomplish something. So when Trump got in that first time, when he was 45, the number 45 president, and then he went to be number 46.
47.
Well, no, he went to be 46.
Oh, he was planning on it.
Yes, and all the drama surrounding that. I think that while technically it was stolen, I do think
it was money and the press, and all.
It wasn't just money in the press. It was a manipulation of votes. That was part of it. That was a big part of it. But I think that was allowed to happen because it was not yet time for Trump to.
That makes great sense to me, Angela, what you've just said.
Yes, it wasn't time, God's time, for the next part of what he needed to happen.
We had to see a clear difference between good and evil, and that's what we witnessed.
And so that was what
it took that much to wake people up to the differences.
Absolutely. So God uses anybody. The Bible is full of examples of, one example that comes to mind is where a man's riding a donkey to go and curse the Israelites so that they'll lose the war, and the enemy of Israel is sending them across. So the guy's going along and he's going to curse Israel. He's going to put the wing dang doodle curse on them, and the donkey stops. And the man says, go, and the donkey just will not go. And he gets off. He beats the donkey. He is beating the donkey. You got to go because he couldn't walk this far, And finally the donkey says, there's a reason that I'm not moving. And he's sitting there arguing with a donkey who is speaking, but the donkey was being used by an angel to tell him something. But the man was so out of his head with anger, he didn't even realize he was talking to a donkey. And the donkey said, you know, if you'd have gone one step further, if I'd gone one step further, you would have been killed, because you are not going to do this. You're not. And here's what you are going to do. Yes, And they argue about this. Finally, the guy goes, okay, you know, I'll have to go and bless Israel, because obviously I don't want to die. But that's not the only time angels have stepped in and done God's will to use a person or a situation.
No question in my mind, for all I've been through and multiple things hitting me at one time, it's very humbling to get help that I couldn't dream up that I really needed.
No, I understand that, but I'm talking about, some people are like, well, Trump, you know, he was been married 3 times, he's cheated on his wife, blah blah blah. You know, he's cheated, blah blah blah. He's done this, he's done that. When in fact, God doesn't care.
Look what happened.
There's other talents that Trump had that is needed, and one of the things that's needed was somebody with a clear vision of everything,
the future and what is possible.
So he is God's tool that God is using right this minute.
Whether you like his personality or not.
But we don't know how long he'll use him. He will use him until he's done what he has needed to do, and that is.
Nor did we know Lincoln's until his work was done.
You look at Eisenhower. Eisenhower as the general over the whole thing.
Allied forces.
World
War II.
In Europe. That man came from nothing. He was not the top
Just a
pick.
Kansas boy.
He was just a Kansas boy. He wasn't even what was he, colonel or maybe a little bit higher.
Became a general
and
then went on.
And everybody was so mad.
And I thought MacArthur would be better, but he brought everybody together more than MacArthur could have done. I thought he was the best candidate but Eisenhower won, and looking back, he was the right man for the time.
Because MacArthur, it was all about ego with him.
Right.
All about ego. And let's talk about ego for a minute. What do you think about the egotistical drive of Gavin Newsom, and in that egotistical drive destroying California?
I have great trouble trying to understand how the man is not rational, what comes out of his mouth is ignoring a state going to hell and letting it go to hell, and saying, you know, trust me, and saying and standing up. But it really comes back to this: immigrants are great. My mother was an immigrant from Canada, okay, and I know many, of course, that have come in. But what the point I'm trying to get to is this: that anybody in a state or a county, if you let millions come over the border, you are basically saying that you basically should know that within that group, it doesn't take but 1 or 2 or 5% of evil people to enter your home. He has invited immigrants that are evil, not them all, no, of course not, but he's invited the flood to come in, including evil ones that will come into your home. And is that any different than letting him come into your community or your state?
Exactly.
Is it any different? So he has invited them into your home, those that are evil. I didn't say all immigrants. We need them. We need them to come in.
But there's a difference between an immigrant and an illegal alien.
Exactly.
He's let illegal aliens
and they can't talk that language.
Yeah, in fact, Trump has made that federal law that any.
I hope this Congress will wake up and pass the law. You want to vote for your governors and your president, then you better be a citizen.
No, I understand that, but he's made a law that anybody who is driving big rigs and other commercial vehicles and even just regular vehicles must be able to speak and write English.
That is what we need to bring the country together. We don't need everybody going off on their separate paths without accommodating to what is common for all Americans. What will keep us together and peaceful is partly people getting along who can speak one language.
They can understand
and they can have
it,
all
yeah.
the other languages. Great.
Sure, yeah.
That's the new world. But it's not great to have everybody unwilling to be an American and not be willing to learn the language.
Well, yes, because it does bring anarchy and chaos to just the things that we have systemized.
And we see these flags flying of the immigrants from Mexico and everywhere else. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with the Mexicans generally. Nothing wrong with them. But that effort to be an American and to enjoy the benefits that we've had up to this point.
It's missing.
Exactly.
The effort is missing. Okay, couple things. During this last little segment, you heard a lot of background noise, like somebody in the kitchen. That was Joshua's son that lives with him, and he was in there fixing his breakfast and getting ready to go on his daily walk. His son has special needs. He's autistic, and he's been living with Joshua for gosh, almost 3 decades, I think. Maybe longer. So Bruce is a character in and of himself, but that was just what that was, and I thought I'd let you know. Oh yeah, and another thing I want y'all to pay attention to is we're using an iPhone, and by we I mean me. I thought, why can't I use my iPhone instead of his old computer? And I believe the sound of his voice and of there's not a lot of echo in it that there was before when we were using his computer. So the sound is better. Plus, I think the color is a lot better than the old computer camera that he had. And so we're getting used to it. This is our first time, so we were playing around with how it had to change. Okay, let's get back to Joshua, and here we go. Well, Joshua, we have about 5 or 6 minutes left because we're trying to keep these about around 30 minutes, give or take a little bit. What are your last thoughts that you would like folks to take away from today, knowing what you've talked about thus far?
Well, I've lived a long time, and so I want to share my skills. And I've been a citizen soldier, and I've been a busy boy, if you will, doing a lot of things. Besides being a soldier, I've been busy in a number of fields that when I started to look back, I was surprising myself that I had 12 different skill sets.
Can I read that list real quick?
Yes, if you would read it from that latest book, November of 2024. Yes.
Yes. These are, how many did we count? We counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Here we go. Flying is radar jet fighter intercept officer, worldwide air navigator, 10 years, 3,500 flight hours. Pilot, civil air patrol, search and rescue missions. Real estate sales manager, new subdivisions. Residential commercial real estate broker. $1 Million roundtable qualifier in life insurance. Chartered financial consultant. Registered investment advisor. Certified Toastmaster. Georgia Insurance Commissioner candidate for the Libertarian Party.
That's supposed to be independent. I think it's more independent than the other two.
It is. Teacher. You've been teaching people all kinds of stuff. You're an author of over 14 books. You're a certified graphoanalyst since 1976 in the French school method. You are a certified graphologist since 2016 of the German holistic method. You've been an entertainer. You were an entertainer for 11 years on cruise ships with programs centered around individual handwriting analyses. And now this is actually number 16. And now you're helping men to reclaim the voice of manhood with your new book, The Modern Day Renaissance Man. I'm going to put
Spiritual
that.
Odyssey.
A Spiritual Odyssey. I'm going to hold that right there so they can see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the point that...
Wait. We're going to link that in the show notes.
All right.
From on Amazon.
So is this running? Good. Mm-hmm. My point, my interest now is passing on to my children and grandchildren the resources that are available to them that they might be missing if I can't see them as often as I used to, right, because of my limitations, physical with arthritis and all the rest. Sure. But I'm a happy camper. So basically I will not be able to travel like I could before, and I want to, and I hope this podcast they will be able to see as they go on to college and do these other things in life, not to miss that. I want to know them better, and I want to help them to know history better. And I am a walking history book available to them that's been through 3 wars and the current one underway. That's 4.
Yes.
That are getting serious. And I want them to understand that history can repeat itself,
yes,
although in many changed ways. So those are it's not just my children and family, it's all the dear friends I know, and the country and the family, and the love that I have known over the years and still know and have lost.
Yes. Well, everybody, I think that just settled it right there, and we are going to say goodbye. Say goodbye, Joshua.
I love you all.
And we will see you on the flip side. Joshua's great. He's a great guy. Very knowledgeable. And if you've watched his other 2 videos, you've learned some other things about him. And when you do watch the other 2, compare the sound and the color of the video from the other 2 that we did on that old computer at his place to my iPhone. Let me tell you something. Technology has come a long way, and it comes a long way faster than it ever did before, and I'm really liking it. While we were talking about the jackass that was talking, I was trying to find the scripture. I'm going to find it. I'll put it in the show notes so that you can read it for yourself. Funny thing, I don't think the word donkey is in the Bible. It might be in some versions or translations, but I couldn't find donkey. But I did find ass. So I'm going to look that up, and I'll try and get it to you in the show notes before we go live with this. Well, anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and we're going to play my outro and make it end, even though we don't have to, but we're gonna, because it's fun.